I wanted to ask you about the work that brings you to the UN.
This is a very interesting new project which has been set up by the United Nations Development Programme to tackle the issue of AIDS and the law. And that seems to be a contrast, that AIDS should have anything to do with the law, but as we've seen recently in Malawi, in Uganda, in Nigeria and in other countries, the law can be an obstacle to people getting information about how they can protect themselves and thereby protect society. So this is going to be the project. It's a new commission, and this is the first meeting, and today is the first meeting of the first meeting. So
that's fantastic.
It's I think a very good new development, and I'm very proud to be involved in it.
Because that's wonderful. If you could say what your dream would be for the outcome of this meeting, what would you hope would come out to help make the law no longer an obstacle?
Empowerment of women, empowerment of sex workers, empowerment of men who have sex with men, empowerment of injecting drug users, all the very, very vulnerable people in the world who are put outside the messages of HIV and AIDS and thereby put outside self-protection. It's been estimated by a recent inquiry by UNDP that only 9% of gay men in Africa have access to the knowledge and information about the virus that they can protect themselves and thereby protect their partners and society. So it's a truly urgent problem. After the GFC, there isn't going to be the money to give unending millions of people the antiretroviral drugs. So we have to concentrate on prevention of the spread, and that will mean not only epidemiological change, but it will mean legal change as well. So lawyers have a relevance for once.
So how do you see this empowerment happening? Through education, through what laws do you think would empower these vulnerable populations?
Well, it's a very tricky problem, and it's a very difficult problem, and I think the message I'm going to try and get over to my colleagues is it's not going to be good enough for us to produce beautiful pieces of paper within the UN system. All too often that is the outcome of UN meetings. We have to be respectful of other people's journeys and where they are on the journey, and we have to reach out to them in ways that will convince them and will get them to see that they have to repeal some old laws, many of them colonial relics, and they have to pass new laws that are empowering and for very vulnerable groups. Now this is a big ask. Let's face it, in Australia and the United States, just a decade or so ago, we were in the same position. So it's a big ask, and it's a big need, and therefore it will have a big effort.
Do you see a time frame on this effort?
Well, the time frame is yesterday. It has to be done immediately. The amount that is being attributed to the Global Fund against AIDS is in fact not increasing, although the numbers of people who are infected is increasing. And therefore this is an extremely urgent problem. Now, how do you get that over to people? I found in Cambodia, when I was UN Special Representative, that they didn't really fall for the human rights arguments. But when I put it in economic terms, this is going to cost your economy a lot of money, then the politicians started to pay attention. So we're going to have to frame our arguments in the most subtle way, not duplicitously, but in order to get the message over and to ensure that we can protect the very vulnerable. This is a real challenge for law and for justice, which is what the Gruber Prize is for, the Gruber Justice Prize. I'm very proud to have received it.
Well, that's really wonderful. It makes me think of the next question I had kind of in the back of my mind, which is how your work fits into the Justice Prize, but in some ways this exactly fits into the Justice Prize, which is honoring individuals who have achieved justice through legal means, and you're working within the framework of the law to empower, in this case, vulnerable populations. Are there other things in your work which has spanned a long, long time?
A very long time. I'm afraid I'm an ancient warrior. But I think the interesting thing is that the Gruber Prize jury and the foundation have thought laterally I mean, most people would say, well, what has law got to do with AIDS? What is law? What are lawyers doing involving themselves in that? But the plain fact of the matter is that the law has become an impediment, but it can be a protector. It can provide protection against discrimination. It can give people empowerment. It can give them dignity and self-respect, and it can protect their fundamental human rights. But it requires a special imagination and a lateral thinking to see that. And I think this is the strength of the Gruber Foundation and its jury system, to decide that it will look out for people who are perhaps paradoxically doing things for justice and human rights, and doing it in a way that is effective. And I hope that this new enterprise in New York today will be an effective new step.
Well, it sounds like you're bringing the law into the 21st century in some ways, that your law is not really caught up with the times in lots of ways.
That's one way to put it. The law hasn't caught up, but in fact the law is in some respects an impediment. One of the legacies of the British Empire, many of the legacies of the British Empire were good: post offices, courthouses, legal infrastructure, democratic governance, but some of them were not so good. And one of the things that wasn't so good were the laws on moral questions. A lot of hypocrisy and also a lot of unkindness and cruelty. And what we have to do is to try and show people in developing countries that these are relics of earlier times when they were put down, when they were stigmatised, when people were stigmatised on the basis of their colour. And now to stigmatise people because they're women or because they are gay or any other ground of that kind is really just a relic of an earlier time, and it has to be got away with, just as we got rid of apartheid. And that's why I'm especially proud that Arthur Chaskelson was the chair of the jury. He made such a wonderful contribution to South Africa and to the new freedom constitution of South Africa. And it's a special source of pride to me that he was chairing the jury that awarded me this prize.
Thank you. Thank you very much.